Hello everyone. This is my second video about this book, Humankind, A Hopeful History by Rutger Bregman. If you have watched my first video about this book, you will know that I generally like this book very much. I think it's a very important contribution and I would recommend to others reading this book. But in this part, I want to talk about my criticism of this book, what I see to be the shortcoming of Bregman's arguments and his project, the general approach to presenting a view of human nature that is very positive. And I have two items to talk about here. I try to keep it brief. The first item is about an opposition that he sets up between Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Thomas Hobbes. And he presents the basic project of this book to be about figuring out which one of those two thinkers was right. Was Hobbes right or was Rousseau right? And to put it very briefly in the form of a caricature, Hobbes believed that human nature is essentially evil, essentially wild, selfish, beastly, and Rousseau believed that human nature is essentially good, kind, and not selfish, not self-centered, but it becomes evil because of the influence of civilization. So Rousseau believed that human nature is generally good, kind, positive, and Hobbes believed that it's evil. And Bregman presents us with that opposition and he argues in favor of, he takes side with Rousseau. He argues the Rousseauian position that is basically a positive view of human nature. But my criticism of this is that he fails to see the commonality between Rousseau and Hobbes. There's something very important that both Rousseau and Hobbes share in common, and that is the distinction between human nature and nurture. They both take for granted that human nature is separate and can separately exist and studied and considered in separation from human culture and human civilization. They fail to consider the possibility that human nature is essentially cultural, that it is in our nature to learn to be cultural. If you leave a baby alone or a child alone, they cannot survive. A human being outside of culture, outside of human society is dead, cannot exist, cannot survive. And everything important, including our kindness, including our evil, exists only as a cultural process, as something that is in relation to other people. So Hobbes and Rousseau should both be challenged because of taking for granted the separation between nature and nurture. So we should not take sides naively with Rousseau, I think. We should reject both Rousseau and Hobbes and challenge the distinction between nature and nurture. There's no human nature outside of culture and outside of nurture. My second issue with this book has to do with its rhetoric. It has a rhetoric, a kind of argument, a kind of relationship with us, the reader, that we can describe as paternalistic. And what do I mean by that? What is it that makes a writer paternalistic? A paternalistic writer, a paternalistic style, is one that sees the writer himself, right? The writer himself sees himself as more wise, and therefore in a position to tell the reader the simple version of the story, the simplified version of the truth, saying to the reader, okay, listen, this is you should really believe this. Trust me. If you believe this, it's good for you. It's for your own good. Like paternalistic, the root of that concept is the same as being a father. It's a fatherly relationship. Father knows better, like the children themselves are ignorant, they don't know as much. So if you believe that human nature is kind, that human nature is positive, it's good for you. So this is not a kind of relationship with the reader that promotes questioning and exploration. It's not saying to us that human nature is, that human beings are essentially mysterious, that we have a choice between good and evil. We can do both. If he's saying that to us, then he's keeping his relationship, keeping himself on equal grounds with the reader. He's saying that we are the same. I'm not your father. I'm not going to be a fatherly figure to you. I'm not going to have a paternalistic relationship with you. Instead, I'm going to tell you the whole truth. And the truth is that human beings are open. They are mysterious. They are not essentially evil or essentially kind or good. And we have choices. So by making his rhetoric more forceful, more clear, and by giving us the answers that he thinks that we should have, I think he's treading on dangerous ground. And consistent with that attitude of paternalism, I recently saw a tweet by him, the author, in which he says that shame is a good thing and people should feel shame when they are supposed to feel shame. They should feel shame because shame allows them to control their behavior. And of course, when we talk about people having shame and that being a good thing, we are never going to talk about ourselves, that it's good for me to have shame. It's always about them. You see, again, being paternalistic. I know what's good for them. I know what's good for you. Trust me. Just believe this, believe the things I'm saying. It's better for you. It's the ends are going to justify the means of my rhetoric. So again, I would recommend this book. It's a good read. It's an important contribution. But keep those two criticisms in mind, if you like, as you are thinking and reading this book. Thank you.